Bond Secures. I'm also chairman of Healthy Chesapeake Incorporated. That's a brand new effort. And that effort is to partner with these healthcare organizations to bring services into the city to areas that don't have the education and the knowledge, and we're trying to solve those. My point is this: I think that there is room. We can collaborate, we can cooperate, ultimately we can consolidate, but it has to be the right business decision to do so. So I would not be averse to doing those things. I think it's something that we need to be very prudent about. We also have to understand that this is in the context of a state that is a Dillon Rule state. There is a state statute that has certificates of needs, and healthcare organizations have to apply and get those certificates of needs. Now, one other thing I want to mention. Up in the South Norfolk area, Healthy Chesapeake has been promoting health care, a pharmacy, medical services, a supermarket, because we have a food desert up there as well.
Yes, we do.
So those are the things that I would be in favor of talking about, researching, collaborating, cooperating, seeing if we can close some of the gaps in these services.
Thank you. Leonard, you want to?
Yeah, so the healthcare issue, to me, South Norfolk specifically, like the Chief just said, is a major concern. No pharmacy, no contact. I've been a proponent of a ESD in the southern portion of Chesapeake. It has a couple of facets to it. Mind you, what the Chief said about has to meet the needs and things like that. But if you look, I believe an ESD is going to come.
Excuse me, ESD?
An emergency, it's a standalone ER.
Thank you.
Sorry. So a standalone ER is going to come, and it's either going to be in southern Chesapeake or it's going to be in Moyock. And that's my personal belief. I believe it's coming. Moyock is booming. I'd rather see the jobs created in southern Chesapeake than in Moyock. That's just my personal opinion. That also affects traffic on 168. We create jobs down in Edinburgh. We then can have an inverse effect on traffic where the rush hours or the need and the demand is in opposite directions. And I think we've already kind of started that footprint of that commercial development down in Edinburgh. And so I think it's fiscally responsible to kind of continue. We've had multiple businesses in Edinburgh just rotate, that retail. It doesn't have the middle of the day business because a lot of people live out here and commute. The workers that are coming to southern Chesapeake are typically the teachers going to the schools down there and things like that, or the construction workers that are building home after home after home, but that's only so sustainable until the residential boom stops. So to me, South Norfolk is probably a bigger issue, but then you also look at it in this aspect, as far as emergency response. We have limited resources in our EMS system, so the ambulances. I call 911 today, I can choose which hospital I want to go to. So that takes Medic 5 here off Hanbury to Norfolk General, and then this area has less service because it's out of the city. If we had more options in the city, it keeps our assets in the city and more readily available to respond. So it's kind of multifaceted in that opinion. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a request. I want to open it up to the audience, and then I can get back to some of my questions. If any of you that have questions that you'd like to direct to a specific candidate, to all of them, please stand up. Here's your opportunity.
For the 30 years that I've lived and voted in Chesapeake, the voter participation percentage that Mr. Hamill referenced to has been pathetic. Yeah. The May elections, it's been pathetic. It's pretty much clear to every thinking person that the large part of the problem is having the elections in May. And the excuse has always been the same. Okay? Well, the local issues will get overcome by the statewide races. And I'll tell you that that's just an insult to the citizens and voters of Chesapeake. It's just an insult. It's clear that the real rationale for keeping it in May is because they want to keep voter participation low. The incumbents, the political parties that endorse them, the business donors that support the political parties and the incumbents, okay, want to keep voter participation low. Mr. Hamill doesn't realize yet that he's part of the problem, okay? That By keeping the elections in May, the small group of people can basically dictate the city elected officials, right? By intentionally making it so that fewer people vote and that only the political supporters and activists and whatever who can be gotten out to the polls. Okay? It's just clear that they're afraid to have a large group of Chesapeake cities vote in an election that is held in November. Okay, so I wanted to call that to Mr. Hamill's attention before he left.
I appreciate the comment, and I don't really know how I'm part of the problem. I'm a first-time candidate running. I'm seeking to make a difference in the city. I care deeply about these issues. I have researched each and every part of this city, whether it's drainage problems in Norfolk Highlands, or the water problems there, or the issues in South Norfolk with economic development, or even coming into your forum tonight to listen and learn about the issues that are of importance to you about growth in southern Chesapeake. So I take a little bit of issue with the point that I'm part of the problem, because I really don't know how to break into politics and to become a representative of the people unless I put my name out there and I try to raise some money and I try to get on the ballot. I can tell you this is by no means an easy process, even for me as an endorsed candidate. I am the youngest person on the ticket running. I have not been from Chesapeake my entire life. I have worked extraordinarily hard to learn the issues of this city. Being part of the problem, I hope I'm not part of the problem, and I can't really take too much ownership. This is when the election is. I had nothing to do with that. To your point, though, if you really want to have a political science debate about that, I think if we were to have the election in November, I don't know how I would possibly get my message out with the way that I raised the money so far. And being part of the problem, I encourage you to take a look at who's donated to my campaign. If you think I'm part of the problem, take a look at that kind of stuff. Take a look at me, take a look at how I try to answer these questions, how I try to understand the issues. If you think I'm part of the problem, you don't have to vote for me. I simply highlighted in my opening statement that in 18% of the electorate voting, that was the height, and I found that repugnant. And I brought my daughter my oldest daughter. She's been a part of this campaign. It's been a wonderful opportunity for her to learn about civic engagement. I'm very proud of her. She's part of the STEM Academy at Grassfield High School, and my wife and I are pushing her into education. We're pushing her into the sciences, and I'm very proud of the classes she's taking right now. Honors chemistry as a sophomore, and AP Euro and things like that. So I hope I'm not part of the problem. I hope you'll give me a chance. I respect the question. I respect the position, and I also respect the frustration. But I'm frustrated too. I'm having a hard time getting my name out there as a first-time candidate. So I'm here, I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to try to answer your questions as best I can.
For 30 years, how nothing's been done to get voter participation up. What is your suggestion?
Well, for me and my family, I'm trying to bring it to my dinner table with my kids, and I'm making them a part of the campaign, and I'm educating them. I mean, if you look around this room, I don't know how many people on Facebook follow this group. It's impressive. It's impressive enough to make me want to be here tonight, to make sure you hear me, but look how many people are in the room that showed up from your Facebook group. I mean, talk about it being pathetic. This is a pathetic problem, and you have the same problem with your own group. And so I would say we all have a collective onus.
Well, okay,
in
I'm
this
gonna cut
issue.
you off. I'm gonna cut you off there. That was a little uncalled for, man. Yeah, actually, I would like you to say something too.
First of all, I agree with Mr. Hamill that I do believe it's unfair to single him out as being part of the problem, especially when I can point to, I know Mr. Waters is in favor of keeping elections, local elections for May, during the May time period, and he is an independent. And his reason for doing so is the same as Mr. Hamill's. There's such a glut of information and candidates out there in November. I, as an individual who takes a lot of time to research the candidates and look at the issues, even for the November election, that was a lot of work. Even for this election, right now in May, it's a lot of work. So I would disagree that it is not an issue related to a political party trying to drive the results. There is definitely an issue with voter apathy. I'm one of the admins for the Facebook group, #Stop Developing Southern Chesapeake, and I am almost daily putting something on our, we have over 1,700 voters. I'm almost daily putting message out there, vote, vote. The biggest party in the United States is not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's the non-voters. And there's been a lot of research done as to why people don't vote. And I'm not going to stand up here and go through all those reasons, but there are lots of reasons. Most of them, I would say, are excuses. But you know, I as an individual have no answer as to how that could be addressed. Of course, I'm here to speak for Mr. Waters, not for Karen Hammerquist. But yeah, voter apathy is an issue, and personally, I'm doing what I can as an individual with the resources I have and the people I can connect with to encourage them to actually get out there and use their vote. And I don't care who they vote for. I'm not going to tell anybody who to vote for. You say just get out there and vote, exercise.
Except Jean tonight.
Except Jean. Tonight I am Jean Waters. Vote for me, Jean Waters.
Thank you, Karen. 11,
Running as an independent, getting into this game is difficult. So, personally, I am an independent. I didn't seek party endorsement in either party. However, as a new candidate, I can see the drive. I can see, because getting your message out there, what Matt hit on, is very difficult. And to me, I think David and I, Matt said he was the youngest, but I'm the youngest. But we won't have that age. I got you. But I think a lot of it is, and you look at David and I think it's a generational thing as well. As far as, I didn't get involved in politics until it affected me in Portsmouth. I'm a union representative for the firefighters in Portsmouth, and it is and it's not even generational, it's apathy. That's exactly what it is. Trying to get the union to get involved in politics was so difficult. Me and a buddy spend days up in Richmond advocating for some of our Leo bills and things like that. You know, and ultimately, that's what drove me here. You know, so finding that niche, and I think David and I hopefully will have a positive outcome and maybe some younger turnout, you know, things like that, where people feel that there is some sort of representation. Not to say that the people of the past didn't have our best interest in mind, but having that, being able to relay your story to my story. And I don't know, and it's difficult balancing a full-time career and 5 kids and 6 wife, but I don't think, party affiliation I don't think is the problem. I think the problem, honestly, is getting people out to vote. And I do completely agree with that. And I stand here as an independent that is not, I didn't seek endorsement from anybody. You know, but if you believe in your message, he took a route that what he thinks he can do for the best thing. And so I do commend Matt for that, but to blame him as part of the problem, I don't necessarily agree. So.
I don't want to sit here and beat a dead horse. I agree with all independents in the room right now. I just think it's a matter of personal responsibility. As a young man, you know, getting into politics fresh, you know, it's an interesting network to try and navigate. You don't know what's really going on until you really take a look at it and sit down. So it's very time consuming for you to get to know a candidate and for you to get to know them on a personal level, because that's very important. Being able to connect with the people that need you, I feel, is a very important issue. In some respect, I feel that there is something that we can do if we get up here. It is, you know, like getting teachers and students and parents involved, one of our main points. That will create political activism. You will have to participate in your child's schools. And if you're a student, you'll have to participate in your own school. You'll have to give feedback. I mean, it's just creating programs that create political activism is a way of fighting this political apathy. And more programs like this are genius and should be promoted in any way possible. I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I just want to say I have to go.
All right.
Thank you very much
Thanks.
for having me. I also want to say I've won my campaign $10,000 with my own money, and I am personally invested in this. So to say that I'm part of the problem, I'm trying to be part of the solution. So I want to thank you for.
Thanks.
I'm going to put some of my stuff over there.
Jennifer's
just
been
real
waiting.
quick, but it's really quick. It's just my 2 cents. Okay, so my 2 cents is, you know, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, the average is 11%. And we're wasting a lot of money to put on an election. There are over 60 poll places, and each of them have to be manned by X amount of people. They have to open up the facility. They have to do, that's a lot of money to get 11% of people out there. I'm with you. I think it needs to be in November when we have like a bigger turnout. You know, I hear from everybody up here, and I do agree, maybe that's a busy, really busy time to get your point out, but we're wasting money.
Absolutely.
We're wasting money. And we're, you know, every debate that you go to, and I'm sure we'll have lots of questions, we're all talking about where can we cut from here? Where can we rob Peter to pay for Paul? Well, let's do something different. And I am an out-of-the-box thinker, and that's my 2 cents. My 2 cents is we're wasting way too much money to only get 11% of people.
I can
in there.
research a candidate in May as well as I can in November as well as I can in May.
Thank you. I want to open it up to a few more questions. Go ahead.
A while ago, Mr. Best mentioned that the state regulates medical facilities within the Commonwealth. I think Dr. Dick can bring that to attention. However, there was a little conflict the other year about some particular public facility when we go down the street on Chesapeake Channel. And some members on the city council, directors say no. Some members, not everybody, but it is regulated by the state. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. It's not the city council doing it, but it's regulated by the state, but you gotta know who runs the state. So, but then we can stand up here and do it, but it is regulated by the state. If I'm wrong,
That is correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I've heard several, this is a totally different subject.
Sure, no, that's fine.
Yay.
That's fine.
Yay.
Yeah.
I've heard several candidates tonight talk about controlled growth, and I live in Muscoviotis off Cedar Road, and I'm concerned about the growth, lack of growth or whatever, the stoppage of growth in the Dominion corridor. I see storefronts being vacant, nobody's coming into them, but we're building more. I see cleared ground across from the grass field Walmart stopped. I see a Farm Fresh that is going to soon be vacant stopped. Like, what do you propose to do about all of that as part of the controlled growth?
Go ahead, Damon.
Take this one to take off. So there's a lot to that. To begin with, I don't think it's the local government's responsibility to bail somebody out of a risky business decision.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to build a shopping center and everybody wants to leave, the business owner needs to figure out how to manage that. We can't go building houses just to accommodate this one business or a handful of businesses. To me, growth comes when it's right to do so, when you can financially afford it. It doesn't make sense, obviously, to build houses in a school district that's already over capacity. Yes, rezoning can get you a little bit, but that's not the overall arching solution. The big solution is working together with the school board. Growth needs to happen when you have a plan, and a plan is not just something on paper, but it's also a financial plan to be able to pay for the infrastructure upgrades, whether it's a widened road, improved drainage, a new school, new teachers to man that school. That's a long-term plan. So growth, controlling growth might not be the best word, but the plan needs to be more, it's kind of what Mr. Campbell was alluding to. It's more than just what's on paper. It needs to be a financial plan as well, and a plan that includes economic benefit. It says several times in city code that the new revenue that the city makes from the taxes paid from residential development is almost always outweighed by the infrastructure costs to accommodate that new development. But you need to make sure everybody in Chesapeake has the same quality of life they have now, if not better. So if you build without having a plan to upgrade the infrastructure and maintain that quality of life is going to decrease, property values are going to decrease, people aren't going to want to come here, and now revenues are dropping even more. So if you build houses, I think there has to be a plan in place, at least a big picture plan for economic development. Obviously, I'm a big fan of STEM jobs. I think Levin and I both agree we could stand more medical field jobs in Chesapeake. Whatever kind of job it is, and frankly, I think it was back in August, City Council had a work session with economic development experts, and the experts told us that there is an abundance of retail in Chesapeake. We almost have too much retail. And the issue with retail is that it basically recirculates money rather than injecting money into the economy. There will always be retail. I'm not saying we should not have retail. There will always be retail, but the face of retail is changing. Look what Amazon's doing. I mean, retail is a big deal, so yes, we should build when it's appropriate to do so, but when it's appropriate to do so is much more than empty businesses and things like that. When it's appropriate to fund the roads, the drainage, and schools and so forth. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
And with that, I gotta go put the baby to bed. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, I have a question for the city council candidates about funding for public transit. Right now, the city is only committing enough money to run buses in Chesapeake until 7 o'clock. If we're going to continue all this outward movement of retail and movie theaters and all that kind of thing, then we need to give the people that we are taking jobs away from in the established areas transportation to be able to get to where the jobs are. So my question is, would you be willing to increase the amount of money that we supply to TRT so that these facilities could have workers from the already established areas? Because many folks that work in retail market cannot afford mansions down here in Hickory. So we need to get them some transportation is what I'm saying. Would you be willing to fund that?
Sir, we purchase so much service from HRT or TRT, and because we think the need is there, and sometimes we have empty buses running, so we have to make a call as to, is this route feasible? And if it's feasible, we continue to fund it. Well, I've been on it since November, so I may be speaking more than what I know, but previously, we purchased service from TRT based on the need. If the need is there, I think council will be all in favor of increasing our supplement to TRT to provide for our citizens. So I would be if the need dictates it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And one thing that I left out is a lot of these establishments that are opening in Edinburgh and other places, they are open well past 7 o'clock. So how they're going to be able to get people to work in those establishments is critical. So this will help. If we can't fund the transit system, this would help the people that live in the established communities and those businesses that have relocated to. My opinion. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a question in terms of schools. I am a high school teacher, and I'm a graduate of Chesapeake Public Schools as well. To me, it's not necessarily teachers that are leaving because of city issues or infrastructure issues. It's more or less teachers are leaving because things that the state is putting in place. So for those of you that have gone to school board meetings or have watched school board meetings and spoken to Dr. Roberts, over the course of the past several years, you will note that the city of Chesapeake alone has probably lost close to $40 million from the state. So we have gone in front of city council, and city council has listened. And to me, and I'm independent, I would say that I think they've done a pretty good job in supporting the school system over the course of the past several years and trying to help to alleviate some of those things that have been lost. So my question to everyone is, how do you intend to work with the state to get that $40 million back to us?
This is a very big issue to me, and it's very close to heart because I've been touched very much by teachers who went above and beyond for me, and I feel that as a teacher, your job is extremely valuable. You pass on all the culture and your knowledge to the next generation, and your opinion is valid. So me and Louis are willing to do whatever we can. When he gets on there, he plans to do anything necessary to get with the state, get what we need done. We need to get our schools in better conditions, and we need to get our teachers more well-equipped to deal with problems that may arise and to get their lessons across effectively. And as far as dealing with that, he's willing to put in the time and effort to talk with them and convince them that your problem is a relevant problem. Thank you.
If you recall, way back when the lottery was started, Billy O'Brien was the catalyst behind that. And that's what the money from the lottery was supposed to go for. And the state is where the problem is, as you said. And so we need to partner with the school system and talk to the state and let them know that the lottery money is intended to go to schools. And it's gone everywhere but to schools as it was intended. So that's where the problem is with the state. And I think Dr. Roberts and the past superintendents, they're happy with the council because the council has done a whole lot for the schools. They tried to supplement that money that they did not get from the state. And so we need to bang on the doors in Richmond and tell them to fund the schools because it's a constitutional responsibility of theirs.
I want to allow Brian.
Yeah, I mean, to carry on Mr. Barker, I mean, since I've been campaigning and running, that seems to be the fallback of, everybody who, we realize the state isn't funding public education as they once were. So, I mean, it's up to the local government, to bang on the heads and to drive the message home relentlessly. So you have to have that boots on the ground kind of effect to attempt to get things done. Obviously, nothing's happening overnight, and I believe council and the existing school board are doing everything that they possibly can. However, their hands are tied. And I've been told that numerous times. At the same time, I think, maybe they could take a step back and look to see with different allotments, where money's being spent currently, what can we do to improve, those sort of things. But I mean, the ultimate issue is at the state level. And I think that's where your local politicians to go and continuously be relentless in jumping up and down for more funds towards public education. Because, with me in the real estate and mortgage business, Chesapeake Public Schools is the driving feature why a lot of people come and live in this area. Our schools are phenomenal. The teachers are phenomenal. The children across the board. But the more and more that the lack of funding's there, the worse and worse the system's going to get. Therefore, the real estate decline. And without real estate development, you can throw away teachers' increase in pay. You need a real estate development in order to influence some growth and some activity to seek raises for the teachers. So I mean, it starts at the local level, but you got to bang the heads of the state.
Thank you.
So, here's Stacy. My mom's been a teacher for 31 years, currently in Chesapeake, and biggest thing, advocating at the state level is huge. I've done it for my union. I've done it. It's being able to go up there and talk to Senator Cosgrove, Senator Lucas, Senator Spruill. Being able to work in a bipartisan fashion is huge. Trying to get things done and making those contacts where you walk in and they recognize your face, whether it's a good thing or bad thing. At least you have that relationship that they understand you're there to handle business. And I've started to develop that with a few delegates up there, just because of the work I've done in my other organization. But it really is. That's what drove me, because I've seen what it can do at the state level. Because ultimately, our money is funneled through there when it comes to, or should be funneled through there when it comes to our public schools. And as my mom being a teacher, my wife is a bus driver, I understand the needs of Chesapeake Public Schools when it comes to funding. And I do agree that City Council has done a lot, and they've picked up a lot of burden that has been placed by the state. But there is a lot to be done at the state level. So I completely agree with her.
You had a question, right?
Can I add just 2 cents real quick? Real quick. So I have 6 kids, 3 of which have special needs. 2 have IEPs, 1 has a 504 plan. I'm sick and tired of going to IEP meetings and being told, you can't have that, we don't have money. You can't have that, we don't have money. You can't have that, we don't have money. So everybody up here cares about schools. But here's my little point. I have 6 kids in the school district. This mama's gonna get stuff done because I'm sick and tired of being told you can't have this and you can't have that. My baby needs to be successful, and in order for every child to be successful, they need the accommodations and the services and the funding, and they need all of that. So when you're going for the vote, I'm not bad mouthing nobody. Everybody up here is caring. But you need to look at who has an invested interest in those topics. I have an invested interest in that topic because I have 6 kids and they're in the school district. I want them successful. I want your kids successful. I want all kids successful. So I'm gonna be backflips, cartwheels, and pounding some heads because we need that. That's my 2 cents.
Did you want to ask your question?
Yes, please. I'm Kim Krasinski. I live over in Southwood, and it seems like every time the school board talks about changing the schools, I get nervous because I pay a portion for my house, and I want to be able to get that back. So I have a question about proffers, and I think I know the position of most of the folks that are currently on the city council, but I would like to know the position, how you feel about proffers. Specifically because I feel like if we're not getting this money from the builders and putting that to, increase the school, build the schools, so we don't have all the portables or whatever, then, we're gonna have to redistrict, and, you always create frenzy when you do that. Secondly, the voter apathy part, that is, I'm not gonna put that on city council or anybody else because I don't feel like it's the government's, I don't want the government having any more control in my personal life than they already do. But as you can see, I brought my 18-year-old daughter with me, and I think everybody should be doing that. My oldest son graduated from Hickory High School, and he went to a political party meeting, and he said, I think he and his buddy, he's 28 years old, he said, I think we lowered the average by 20 years by being in this. So it is parents getting our children involved and realizing these are the things that matter, you have to use your voice. So, but I'll go back to the proffers question, please.
I'm not going to talk about it like that like I know what it is. I'm not the expert. Lewis is, and he's currently tied with another meeting. But he's very much a sociable man. You go up to him and talk to him, he'll talk to you like you're one of his friends. There are tons of his cards over there. If you call him at any time or email him, keep in mind he is a student. He does have his responsibilities. He is also trying to run a campaign completely free, and we're doing this based off all the donations and stuff that we have gotten, and people that have chosen to endorse us. And it's been truly a hard trip on both of us. Tireless hours of working and driving, and more driving. So please, by all means, ask him. He's the expert, and if not, he's going to research it and he will get back to you. Some of the cards are on the table. Feel free to take them. Thank you.
Anyone else want to answer about proffers? Some feedback?
Well, let me answer and comment on the last 3 questions. 3. Proffers, I think you do know my position on proffers. I've never felt that. I felt that proffers are an obligation and they should be enforced, and I'm not in favor of removing proffer obligations. Number 2, relative to the schools and the state, I challenge anyone in this room to believe that every member of the General Assembly does not realize that they have been negligent in funding the schools. They all do. There's no question. I mean, the problem is, the issue is there has not been as concerted a voice among people. That's how things get done up there. They listen. And talking about voter apathy, know who's not voting to fund the schools, if that's your main issue, and then vote them out of office in November. And insofar as the November election, I am so proud of my record over the years in service to the citizens of Chesapeake that I'd be willing to run any month of the year.
The proffers, to me, I think that they have, I don't know the systematic approach of how that all comes in and what you're asking for and all that. I do not know that. However, I think you need to look at some sustainability aspects. With the residential boom that we've had, as I think David hit on earlier, they can give us some money up front, you know, to rezone and do things like that, but the sustainability of the assets that then have to be continued and continued and continued, you know, we have a responsibility. Yes, they give us money for the streets today, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we then have that responsibility. So, to me, and like I said, I want to learn more about that, but to me, I think the builder, especially right now, holds an extreme responsibility for setting the city up to at least accommodate with some of those expenses long-term as well. So, and then one other thing, I'm sorry, Dr. Dietrich hit on it. The nice thing about the state now is when they are in their committees and subcommittees, you actually can see how they vote now. Before, they could go into subcommittee and you wouldn't see how they track their votes. You can actually, now there is reporting that will show how they vote in their subcommittees, because they like to drop it down to finance. Let's say if the bill goes up and they like to drop it down to finance, and then you wouldn't see the report of finance. Well, now you can see how they vote in finance, and then you can see how they voted in those subcommittees. So the accountability has gone up significantly this last legislative session for how people are voting. So please pay attention, because it makes a significant difference when it comes to the issues like Dr. Dietrich was saying. If schools are your issue and you see this, watch where those bills that you're following, whether it's SB 444, whatever it is, watch where it goes, watch what committee it goes into, and watch how these people vote, because it makes a huge difference.
Go ahead.
I got two comments on that. One is, you mentioned about prompters. Good comment. 2 years ago, some city council members elected to change the profit policy, and that's for infrastructure for 4 things. It stays in the same area where the houses are built. For capital improvement, it went from $18,000 some odd dollars per single family unit to $4,000. I'm not going to pick on nobody, that's a fact. If you want some good information, go look at the city council website, cityofchesapeake.net, and look at last week's city council meeting. I addressed some of that. No one's mentioned this tonight. We getting ready to go have a tax increase on personal property. Now, I know people say, no, we haven't voted yet. That was only brought it forward. Well, you know what, he brought it? Go on the website. Get the budget. Let me give you some quick numbers, percentage-wise. Talking about personal property tax, 6.7% of the revenue. Total expenditures for the city, 13.9. Okay, just total revenue. Now, if it's in that Atlanta City Council, which I've advocated a 7.2 tax increase to balance the budget, because we're required to balance the budget of the city of Chesapeake or any of the municipalities in the state of Virginia. So if we want to balance the budget, we're going to have to balance it on the existing taxpayers, because the proper developers do not pay, and they can advertise that money that they charge extra for the homeowner over a 30-year period of time. So there's a whole bunch of, but the lady brought a good point. And somebody, for some reason, don't understand that our capital budget, which is separate from the operation budget, that money that we're spending for those things from capital budget could be for school teachers, firemen, police officers, public safety personnel, and also to the utility rate. I don't know if you all know that or not, but it's gone up 15.3% in the last 2 years. That's utility fees. So you can say what you want to about the existing city council members. Not all of them vote that way, but you can believe one thing, most of them have. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
There's a question back there.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
So as the city starts to expand its network and develop new neighborhoods, as infrastructure spreads, such as water pipes and sewage, citizens are forced to tap in and pay fees upwards of $16,000. Would any of you consider a change to the city code that would make it an opt-in solution instead of forcing us to go off our well systems and our septic systems that we paid a great deal of money for in the first place, to have our nice clean water to take, at best, Chesapeake's okie dokie water?
I'll jump in on that. I found it absolutely ridiculous. On Ballahack Road, there's several farmers out there that had wells loved their well water, had no issues, no problems, and then all of a sudden, we're told now you're gonna have to pay for city water because we're gonna redig out here, why? Why? You know, here's the thing, I don't understand, and, you know, a year ago, I thought I did everything right, you know, everything was okay, and then all of a sudden, no, it's not. I think common sense is gone. I'd like to bring common sense back, because it's stuff like that that you sit there and you scratch your head and you're just like, I don't understand. Why would we do that? They already have water. Why would we do that? Is there a problem with the water? Is there an issue with the water? If the answer is no, then why would we change it? Sometimes, you know, there's that saying, just because you can change something doesn't mean you have to or need to. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it or want to do it or should do it. Yeah, I just think that's ridiculous, and I'd really like to bring some common sense back.
You know, I think the formula is somewhat complicated, and I would agree. We here at City Council, it does impose, in some instances, burdens, you know, really burden on the potential participant. It's been in place for a pretty long time, and I think it probably does not represent the only formula and the only application that could be used. And if members of council would feel that a relook at the entire program would be appropriate, or how it could be implemented, how it could be paid for, you know, in a less burdensome manner, I think council would be willing to do that. We've done that with a number of participation issues in the past, and I think council has always been sensitive to that. And it's like anything else. If you hear recurring, then you say, well, there must be more than just one person complaining. And if we at least hear that, it would be appropriate for council to do that. See if there's a different type of formulation that's used elsewhere that would be less burdensome.
And I know a lot of people are complaining because we hear it. I started the Chesapeake Small Farmers Coalition, and that is one of our top issues. People come in and say, help me, help me, help me. I don't understand. I have a well. I'm a farmer, or I live in rural Chesapeake, and I don't understand why I have to have city water now. And it's a huge burden. When it becomes your financial burden, it's a huge problem.
I just wanted to ask real quick, does anybody else have any questions? No?
There you go.
No? Okay. Well, I don't want to, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. And if you have a minute, and you guys have a minute to stick around, okay. Want to personally ask you anything? Great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for putting this on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Make sure you sign your guest book on the way out.
Good to see you.
Yeah.